G'day, Year 12. We're going to look at Lesson 7 today, which is both on page 19. They start, and then we move on to page 20 and 21. So, as usual, can we please highlight and date whatever day it is you're doing this, and we'll get started. So 2 dot points we're looking at today. The first one is the consumers of the popular culture and the nature of its consumption. So there's sort of 2 parts here. That's the first part, that's the second part, and I've broken those up in their relevant headings here. And then our second dot point is how globalisation and technologies, 2 different course concepts, although very intricately linked, have influenced consumption, typo, of the popular culture, being sitcoms. So to break down our first one, we have the consumers of the popular culture. So here we're talking about the types of consumers, and we're going to sort of categorize those. And then we have the nature of its consumption, and that's more how is it consumed, or what are the different ways it's consumed. Now, we probably might think it's pretty straightforward and obvious in that regard, but as we'll see when we tackle this, not quite so straightforward. So we'll start there. So complete that word bank, complete this word bank as well, but I'll talk a little bit on this point here. So the types of consumers here, being a popular culture, and I think being one of the most popular cultures, if you can say that, one of the most popular cultures in the world, there's a huge and wide genre of the types of people that will consume it. Its main commercial strength, as we've outlined here, is that it's got a wide range of age groups, ethnicities, interests as their types of consumers. So you can have people ranging from young sort of teens, even kids. If you look at the Nickelodeon type sitcoms, so I'm thinking things like Hannah Montana. What's that other one? I think Selena Gomez had one at one stage. But those types are the sort of kid version of the sitcoms that you have. So you've really got catered and targeted audiences and consumers there. You've then got ones that are predominantly targeted towards young people. If we look at ones at the time, things like Friends, things now like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, a lot of more contemporary audiences that we're looking at. But then there's also things that you can watch and sit and view as the family. Because if you think prior to streaming, people used to watch TV together a lot more, and the reason being is that you had the set time slots. Like I was saying, if a show or The Simpsons is on 6 to 6:30 every night, that's your window to watch it, otherwise you miss out. So a lot of family sitcoms, in particular in the 90s, early 2000s, were very popular because of that. So things like The Simpsons, things like Everybody Loves Raymond, My Wife and Kids, what's it called? Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Modern Family, all of those types of sitcoms that centre around the family unit, Home Improvement even, were very popular at that time, because that is a really popular type of consumer, is the family unit sitting and watching it all together. And then you've got even older ones. If you look at sitcoms such as The Brady Bunch, if we look at things like Frasier, there are older sitcoms that cater towards those older audiences as well. So in a nutshell, the types of consumers for sitcoms are really, really wide. If we look at gender, and we're looking at how it can be accessed there, more contemporary sitcoms have increased access to particularly female audiences when we're looking at contemporary values and aligning it with feminism. If we're aligning it with empowerment of women, we have new sitcoms like Brooklyn Nine-Nine which handle that. We've got sitcoms like The Good Place, where the main protagonist is a female instead of a male, which is often the case. So that sort of type of consumer is really expanding, and when you look at it, it's more accessible for different ethnicities now as well, as they're often featured more in Western sitcoms as well. An interesting stat here, the ABS, so that is the Australian Bureau of Statistics. So every Australian household has access to TV, according to them, every single one. So that's the primary viewing platform of sitcoms. So that would mean that, according to that stat, everyone in Australia can access sitcoms of some form or another. And that each household watches approximately 1 hour of sitcoms daily. And that equates to about 2 to 3 episodes, so within your household. So that's not saying the whole family is watching it, although it could be, you'll have at least someone consuming about 2 or 3 episodes every day, which is quite a lot. So 3 if you're back-to-back streaming, 2 if you're watching it on telly with ads. So that's the type of consumers. When we look at the nature of consumption, I want you to write next to this that there's physical consumption, you could say, and that there's what I might call other consumption, or there's the traditional way you consume it, which is via TV or streaming, but there's also other ways you consume it. So for example, we talked a couple of lessons ago, I believe, about the Rachel and the haircut of Rachel. That's a way of consuming sitcom culture without actually physically watching it. If you get that style of haircut, or you ask for that style of haircut at the hairdresser or barber, that's consuming sitcoms. So when we're talking about consumption, obviously the main way that you consume, and you can put this next to there as well, obviously the main way you consume a sitcom is through the TV or through streaming. However, there's also other ways to consume it. So anytime you're engaging with any sort of paraphernalia to do with sitcoms, you are consuming it. I think we have a special guest. Are you guys ready? Here he comes. You want to say hi, Patrick? Ugh, look how big he is now. You want to say hi? The people are here. Say hi. Can you talk? No. Okay. We'll put you back up. So Patrick is 8 months old now, as the current date of filming, which is 20th of the 2nd, 2022. He's trying to walk on my keyboard. Oh, now he's drooling on it. So that might not work later. Thanks, Mama. Bye. Say bye, Patrick. And so, oh God, he did change it. Nature of nk. There we go. We'll fix that up. Thanks, Patrick. Okay, so, oh God. All right, we're back. So, yeah, so the way that you can consume sitcoms is not just typically through watching it, although that's the most popular way. You can still consume it through language. So if you quote any of the classic catchphrases from sitcoms, such as one here from Big Bang Theory, you are still consuming a sitcom. If you wear any apparel or clothing, like this one here, you're consuming it. If you have any decorations in your house, like this rug or the Friends mirror, you are consuming that. If you follow social media accounts of it and like their posts, you're consuming it. So there's lots of different ways that you can consume a popular culture. We've got phone apps, the Bro Code from How I Met Your Mother, and all the Holt soundboard from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. There's heaps and heaps of different ways that you can consume it. So it's not just traditionally through the lens of watching the show. It can also be via those other avenues as well. So that's the first stop point we looked at. So the consumers of pop culture we can tick off, and the nature of its consumption. This second one here is how globalization and technologies have influenced the consumption of sitcoms. So here we're looking at how does technology influence how we view and consume sitcom paraphernalia, and how does globalization likewise affect that. So for me, in most of our examples, there's evidence of technology and globalization, because it's very tricky to have globalization almost these days without technology. It's very much reliant on that. So streaming is an example of that, and access to the internet. So I broke it up into 4 main categories here. So the first one, and I'll get you guys to annotate here as we go, as I talk, because there's no actual word bank for this one. The first one's social media. So this is a mix of both technology and globalization. So it links to technology, obviously, because you need technology to view it, the phone, internet connection, and app. But globalization element is that you are interacting with people from around the world, engaging in comments, messaging, sharing of common goods, values, beliefs, and commercial products as well, are very much available through social media, the ads and things that you get. So what social media does is it enables consumers to interact with sitcoms in a more personalised way. So what you might see is things like consumers might be able to post their live reactions to shows or finales via a really common platform for that's Twitter. You could also share quotes or memes or memes or memos, however you say it, with your friends. There's comment tagging, there's DMing or sharing a post that way as well. So anytime you do that, you are consuming a sitcom, and technology's influenced how you do that, obviously, because it's not typically on the TV. Fans can also feel like they have a deeper connection. There's a lot of engagement on social media, on stories. Some pages might even message you back or reply to your comments or like it, so consumers, I guess, can feel validated, and that really affects how much they'll consume it, most likely to increase it, I would imagine, if they have a sense of personal attachment to the sitcom. So that's the first one, is social media. The second one is the streaming and internet. So that's influenced it a lot because of, one, file sharing technology. That's changed the structure of the sitcom industry. So before, if you wanted to view it, you either had to watch it on TV, and then if you wanted to watch it again, you had to wait for the DVDs to be released, and then you had to go to the shops, buy them, and hope they were in stock when they first came out. Often they would sell out, and you would have to wait even longer to be able to rewatch those. And that process used to take quite a long time as well. So the physical DVD sales of sitcoms, you could say, has dropped because of technology. However, digital sales or subscriptions to things like Netflix or Stan have increased because that's how you consume it. So that's an example of how technology has influenced the consumption of our popular culture. On the more negative side, and I would probably highlight this as a negative impact or a negative influence, is the idea that piracy with this technology has also increased. So the amount of illegal downloading, streaming it via some dodgy websites if you don't want to pay for your Netflix subscription, that's also increased. Now, in saying that, I think that's a lot less now. I think prior to the commercial empire that is now streaming, Apple Pay, Netflix, Stan, Disney, I think piracy went down. But now that I've said that and I've listed so many of those streaming services, you might find that may increase in the future because there's almost too many streaming services to pay for. However, with that being said, most people have a small subscription fee, and that yearly subscription fee might be the cost of a physical box set of one sitcom of one particular series. So I still think it's fairly affordable compared to what it used to be. So that's really changed the way that it's been consumed. The other way that it's been consumed because of technology and globalisation as well is that, say for example, if it used to be a sitcom that was mainly done in the US or the UK, Australia was always one of the last countries to receive it because you had to physically export all those files or DVDs to that country, and then they would play that in the studio channel, and then that would get transmitted out. So what you have now with technology, and this increases technology and globalization, is that you have whole seasons that can be released at once. But the main thing here is that it can be released all at once across the globe because of the streaming platforms. So a certain time, it might be 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Netflix across the whole world is going to drop the next season of whatever show it is. So that's changed the way that people consume, because they consume sitcoms a lot quicker now. Before, you would have one episode on a week, or you'd have one episode on each night each week. So Netflix and streaming services have really increased the amount of quantity in terms of consumption, because you can easily binge watch 2 or 3 hours of a sitcom at one time. You can watch a season a week almost, or I know some people do a season a day, which is just crazy. But you have that option, and that's really changed the way that it's consumed today. That's probably why you find there are more sitcoms today, and more viewership and consumption increases the dosh. So that is, I guess, how technology and globalization have influenced it there. When we look at westernization, this is definitely a globalization influence. And this term, cultural imperialism, now I would highlight that. So when we talk about imperialism, I want you to just do a little arrow. We're talking about dominance here. So when we talk about cultural imperialism, we're talking about Western culture dominating the landscape of the sitcom industry. So what has happened as a result of that, that's increased or a globalized increase of people adapting to Western culture's sense of humor, Western culture's language, Western culture's lifestyle, as sitcoms are based off our lifestyle, and a lot of different mannerisms and beliefs that people across the world are adopting because of how they're viewing the sitcom industry. So most humor in sitcoms is based around our Western cultural normativity. So the reason, I guess, that sexual innuendos drive and are so popular in our sitcoms is because that's very much how Western culture finds things funny, is through sexual innuendos. So whereas in other cultures, you can even see the difference. If you look at a British sitcom and a US sitcom, you'll find that the US sitcoms, about 95% of the gags are sex related, but a UK sitcom, it's more about awkward situations, and it's very much that Mr. Bean physical type humour, being put in an awkward situation or social awkward situation, as opposed to the sexual innuendos. Not so common in the UK sitcoms, although they are some. I'm not saying there's none. So that can really affect how people consume it because of the globalized differences there. So the idea, that's probably one of the positive things, I guess you could say. One of the negative things, though, is that it creates that understanding and globalized acceptance of the best way to live is the Western cultural way, and that can be at the expense of other cultures' values as they're consuming that. So they might go against their tradition about or their beliefs about this or that because of how they're viewed and how they're represented in sitcoms. It also can lead to a cultural bias, as Western culture is subliminally seen as the best way of living because it's so overrepresented. It's getting a little bit better and more diverse now, but other cultures are typically the butt of the jokes, and they're really trivialized. So if we look at Apu in The Simpsons, for example, or Raj in Big Bang Theory, Indian culture there is an example of how Western culture is subliminally seeing the way that they're better than, say, Indian or Eastern culture because there's so many jokes about them. It really desensitizes consumers as well, and really does promote that cultural imperialism or dominance there. So that's definitely an influence of globalization on the consumption. And then the last one here, technology. So this is pretty straightforward. If you're on your phone, you can almost view it no matter where you are now, again, with the grace of streaming. So that's really changed how people can consume it. You can, especially now that you can Chromecast onto computers, sorry, not computers, TVs. And then you have other things like apps, the Brocode, Holt Soundboard. I'm sure there's other apps out there as well. So what this does is it creates an increased consumption outside the traditional sitcom viewing platform, which is your TV. So again, that changes the nature, or it has shown the influence on consumption because you can now consume it on the go. Anyway, so that is lesson 7. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed your cameo appearance of Patrick, and we'll catch you later. Bye.